That was the first thing he said to me as he stood awkwardly in the middle of my glass-walled office, eyes scanning the floor, not daring to meet mine. He looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the slumped shoulders or the way his tie hung like an afterthought. It was a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago, spring sun streaking through the windows behind me, and the air inside felt 10 degrees colder than outside. My team had just left the conference room. Laughter and the scent of espresso lingered in the hallway. And then there he was, my father, the same man who once said, "Dreams don't pay bills, Emily. Be realistic." Now standing in my building, waiting for me to decide what to do with him. My name is Emily Carter, and for as long as I can remember, I've been told what I can't do. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, raised in a modest blue-collar neighborhood where ambition was only allowed if it came with a pension. My dad, Richard Carter, worked as a floor supervisor at a manufacturing plant. He believed in rules, hard work, and falling in line. And to him, dreaming outside that line meant you were asking for failure. When I was 8, I wrote in my school notebook that I wanted to own a company that helps people. I didn't even know what that meant back then. But I loved watching people talk, connect, and build things together. I'd sit beside my mom as she worked her second job from the kitchen table, running customer service emails for a startup out in Seattle. She was gentle, soft-spoken, and always tired, but never unkind. Dad, on the other hand, believed the world didn't owe you kindness. He thought toughness was a virtue and sensitivity a weakness, especially in women. He wanted a son, I think, not a girl who loved books and daydreamed through dinner. By the time I hit high school, our conversations had reduced to one-liners. Get your head out of the clouds. You're not built for business. You'll end up back here like the rest of us. I remember one day, standing in the garage while he changed the oil in his rusted-out pickup. I told him I wanted to study digital marketing and start my own brand strategy firm. He looked up from under the hood, wiped his hands on an old rag, and scoffed. You? Run a business? Who's gonna take orders from some girl who's never worked a day in the real world? I was 16. Those words stayed with me like thorns buried under the skin. I stopped sharing my dreams. But I didn't stop having them. Instead, I poured them into silence. I picked up extra shifts at the local coffee shop, applied for every scholarship I could find, and graduated with honors. When I left for Columbia University in New York on a partial scholarship, Dad didn't come to drop me off. He said he was too busy with work. Mom hugged me longer than she ever had before. College was freedom, but it wasn't easy. I slept on air mattresses, lived off microwave noodles, and worked nights at a 24-hour diner while attending marketing classes during the day. I taught myself branding software, freelance logo designs, and slowly built a portfolio. Every time I'd hear my classmates talk about summer homes, family investments, or their dad's connections, I felt the invisible weight of where I came from. But I never let it stop me. I remembered what my grandmother used to say when I'd cry quietly into her lap as a child. You don't need their permission, sweetheart. You just need to keep going.
So I did.
I graduated, interned for a fast-growing firm, and when they refused to promote me because clients liked a male voice better, I quit. I started small, real small. From my one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, I launched my own branding agency, Carter Strategy Group. Just me, a secondhand laptop, and clients I found through forums and job boards. I worked 12-hour days, skipped birthdays, and lost a few friends along the way. But my clients stayed. Then they multiplied. In 5 years, I went from pitching coffee shops to rebranding national startups. I built a team, moved to Chicago, opened a beautiful downtown office with high ceilings, clean energy, and space for interns from underserved communities. I kept our original motto on the wall, just above the coffee bar. We build what they said you couldn't. And still, Dad never called. When Mom passed unexpectedly 2 years ago, he didn't even mention my company at the funeral. Just told relatives I was doing something with the internet. We didn't speak after that. Until last week. I got an email through our website. No name. Just inquiring about an open position. Have management experience. Willing to start immediately. I was going to delete it until I saw the email address. r.carter1971@gmail.com. At first, I thought it was a joke. Then I confirmed it through LinkedIn. My father had been laid off after 28 years. No pension, no savings, no safety net. And now he was applying to work for me, the girl who was never going to make it. I didn't reply to the email right away. I let it sit. Maybe I was being petty, or cautious, or maybe I just wanted to see how far he'd go. A part of me had waited my entire life for this moment, not for revenge, exactly, but for recognition. For him to see me, to really see what I'd built. 3 days after the email, I received a formal resume. There it was again, his name, his job history, his tone as rigid as ever. But the closing line caught me. Willing to work in any capacity. I just want to contribute again. It was so uncharacteristically humble that I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I forwarded it to my assistant, Rachel, and told her to set up an interview. I didn't tell her who he was. The morning he showed up in the lobby, she buzzed me. "There's a Mr. Carter here for the 10 a.m. ops position." My heart skipped. I pressed the intercom. "Send him to conference room 2. I'll be in shortly." I took my time walking in. When I opened the door, he was standing awkwardly by the glass wall, reading the company's mission statement off the wall. He turned when he heard my heels on the tile, and froze. "Emily," he said flatly. No apology, no smile, just my name like it was some sort of mistake. I nodded. "Dad." He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Thinner. Life had chipped away at the man who once ruled our house like a fortress. We sat. The silence hung heavy, and I let it. He cleared his throat. "So, this is all yours?" I folded my hands. "Every inch." He gave a slow nod. Something between shock and discomfort passed through his face. "I didn't realize your company had grown like this." "You never ask." He flinched, then finally said it. "I was wrong about you." I should have felt triumph in that moment. But all I felt was a deep, tired ache. "Why are you really here?" I asked. He looked down. "I lost everything. Factory closed. Pensions vanished. No fallback. I've applied everywhere." I paused, then pulled open the folder on the desk between us. Inside was his application, his resume, and a single sheet of paper with a note I had handwritten at 17. It read, "One day, I'll build something that no one can take away from me." I slid it across the table. "I kept this," I said, "after you laughed when I told you my dream." He didn't touch the paper, just stared at it. Shame blooming in his eyes. "You kept that." I did. I also kept something else. I reached under the desk and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside was a signed legal document, something he hadn't seen in years. I set it on the table and said, slowly, "You might want to take a look at this before we continue." He opened it, hands trembling slightly. It was the property deed to the small duplex he once owned, my childhood home. Signed over to me. 5 years ago, just before he defaulted on it, I had paid the overdue taxes and cleared the liens. Quietly. Legally. He had no idea I was the anonymous buyer who saved it from foreclosure. "Why?" he whispered, not even looking at me. "Why would you do that?" "Because Mom deserved better. That house was hers just as much as it was yours. I couldn't let it be erased like that." He blinked, the weight of decades resting behind his eyes. Then he did something I never thought I'd see. He cried. Just a single tear, and he quickly wiped it away. But it was enough. Enough to shake the ground between us. I stood up, walked around the table, and gently set a hand on the file between us. "You came here looking for a job. I'm going to give you one. But not because you're my father. And not because I owe you anything." I leaned in, voice low and calm. "I'm giving you a job because I believe everyone deserves a second chance. Even the ones who didn't believe in us." He looked up, broken and humbled. "Thank you," he whispered. I nodded. "You'll start in logistics. You'll report to Rachel. And you'll earn your place, just like the rest of us did." At first, things were quiet. Dad, Richard, kept his head down, showed up on time, and did the work. He didn't say much, didn't laugh, didn't try to overstep. In many ways, he seemed like just another new hire trying to find his place. But I saw it. The tension in his shoulders when people referred to me as Miss Carter. The way he paused whenever I walked into a room, like he was still adjusting to the idea that his daughter was now the boss. His boss. And honestly, I was adjusting too. I thought I had prepared myself emotionally, that the power dynamic shift would feel satisfying, even healing. But power doesn't erase history. It doesn't silence the echoes of years of being told I was never enough. One afternoon, about 2 weeks in, Rachel knocked on my door. "Hey," she said carefully. "Can I ask something kinda sensitive?" I looked up from my laptop. "Always." She walked in, closed the door behind her. "Is Richard your dad?" I blinked. "What makes you ask that?" She hesitated. "Just little things. He mentioned your mom's name in the break room. Said he used to live in Dayton. And today during the team meeting when you were presenting, he looked like he was trying really hard not to, well, react." I sighed. The secret was becoming unsustainable. "Yes," I said. "He's my father. But that doesn't change the chain of command." Rachel nodded slowly. "You don't owe me an explanation. I just wanted to be transparent in case anyone else starts piecing it together." "Thank you. I'll handle it." But handling it turned out to be more complicated than I'd expected. The very next day, I overheard Lance, one of our junior managers, muttering in the hallway. "Guess it pays to be the boss's dad, huh?" I stepped out of my office, calm but firm. "Lance, a word, please." He followed me, suddenly sheepish. "I understand you may have questions about Richard's role here," I said, closing the door behind us. "But I want to make one thing very clear. He earned his position like anyone else. And if there are concerns, I expect you to bring them to me directly, not whisper them behind closed doors." He nodded quickly, apologizing. But the damage was already brewing. Rumors started swirling. Some said I was too emotional for keeping him on the team. Others whispered about favoritism, about nepotism, even though Richard never got special treatment. In fact, I was harder on him than most. Still, it stirred the pot. One evening, as I wrapped up some emails, there was a knock. It was Richard. He stood at the door, holding a folder, his face unusually tense. "Can we talk?" he asked. I nodded and waved him in. "Something happen?" He set the folder down. "Some of the guys in logistics, they're saying I only got hired because of you. That I'm your charity case." I closed my eyes briefly. "I'm aware. And I'm addressing it." "I didn't ask for this," he said suddenly, voice rising. "No," I said evenly. "But you showed up. You applied. And you walked into my building without any idea of how that would affect either of us. So now we both deal with it." He flinched. "I'm not used to taking orders from—" He stopped himself, but I caught it. "From women?" I asked. He looked ashamed. "From my daughter," he corrected, softer this time. It's hard to wrap my head around. I sat back, watching him struggle with the shift. Years of patriarchal wiring unraveling inside his mind. "You told me I'd never succeed," I said. "You dismissed me, doubted me, and made me feel small. Every step of the way." "I know. And now you work for me. That's not karma, Dad. That's life. And if you want to keep this job, you need to respect the role. Mine, yours, and everyone else's." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said something that surprised me. "Do you remember when your mom left that note in your lunchbox on your first day of college?" I blinked.
"Yeah."
She wrote, "Go light the world on fire, Emmy."
He nodded.
I was angry she did that. Not because I didn't want you to succeed, but because I was scared you would. And I wouldn't know how to deal with it. There it was. Honesty.
"You still don't," I said. He didn't argue.
Before he left the room, he turned and said, "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Emily. Just a chance to earn your respect back." I didn't say anything. I just let him walk out. A few weeks passed, and slowly, things began to shift. I didn't know if it was grace, time, or just exhaustion, but I felt something softening inside me. Not erasing the past, no. just rearranging it, making space for new stories. Richard, Dad, stayed quiet, reliable, and surprisingly respectful. He reported to Rachel, took feedback, and even offered to train a younger intern who reminded him of himself at 20. I watched from a distance, unsure what I was witnessing. Transformation, maybe. Or penance. One Friday afternoon, Rachel came into my office again, this time smiling. "Thought you'd want to see this," she said, holding a customer service report. It was a glowing review of a warehouse interaction. The client had praised a gray-haired logistics tech for his calm attitude and thoughtful assistance. "Richard?" asked, already knowing. Rachel nodded. "That's the third time this month." I read the note, oddly moved. He hadn't asked for praise. Hadn't even told anyone. He just did the work. That weekend, I took a walk past the old duplex I had bought back, the house that nearly broke our family. It looked better now. Clean windows, new paint, a few flower pots outside. A young family lived there, renting it from me at below market rate. I hadn't told Dad that either. I didn't want credit. I just wanted to protect the place where Mom once baked cookies and whispered affirmations into my soul while the world tried to shut me down. Standing outside that house, I remembered something Mom once said late one night after a particularly vicious argument between Dad and me. "You don't have to mirror his hardness, Emmy," she whispered. "You are allowed to be fire and light." I hadn't understood it then, but now I did. Revenge didn't have to look like fire and fury. Sometimes, revenge was quiet boundaries. It was rising above while still standing firm. It was offering fairness where you were once denied it. Dignity, where there was once shame. On Monday, I asked Richard to join me for coffee in the rooftop garden above the office. He looked surprised when I offered, but followed me up without question. We sat, the city below us buzzing in its Monday chaos. I handed him a mug. Black coffee. Just how he used to drink it. "I want to clarify something," I said. "You're not here out of pity." He looked at me, eyes steady. "I know. And you're not entitled to stay. The job, like everything else, is earned every day." He nodded. "Understood." I paused, then added, "But you're doing good work. And people notice." Something cracked in his face. Not pride exactly, just gratitude. A kind he'd never shown me before. "I didn't know how to be a good father to a daughter who didn't need me," he said. I met his gaze. "You didn't need to be needed. You just needed to believe in me." He looked down, silent. Then he said, "I do now." That was enough. No apologies could rewrite our story, but mutual respect could rewrite the ending. Later that week, I called a staff meeting. I stood before the team, addressing the swirling rumors and unspoken discomfort. "Some of you may have learned by now that Richard Carter is my father," I said. "Yes, he applied for a job like everyone else. Yes, he's held to the same expectations. And no, he does not get special treatment." I looked around the room. But here's what I believe. People can change. They can grow. And if we don't allow space for that, then we've lost what makes us different as a company and as people. I didn't say it to defend him. I said it to define us. Our culture. Our core. I stepped down from the podium to a room full of quiet understanding. Even Lance, who had once snarked about nepotism, approached Richard after the meeting and offered to grab coffee sometime. And Rachel? She pulled me aside and whispered, "You handled that like a boss. And a human." That night, I walked home lighter. I called my grandmother and told her everything. She didn't say much, just hummed and said, "The real win, my girl, is when you break a chain instead of dragging it behind you." 6 months later, the office felt like a different world. We had doubled our distribution channels, hired a second operations lead, and moved into a bigger space with windows that caught the morning sun just right. I'd finally allowed myself to decorate my corner office, not with the sterile coldness I thought power demanded, but with warmth, bookshelves, plants, and framed photos of my mom. And the team? Flourishing. There was laughter during lunch breaks, open collaboration across departments, and most surprising of all, A little birthday cake ritual every Friday where we celebrated even the quietest team members. Richard had baked for it twice. His banana bread was unexpectedly a hit. I never imagined I'd see the day where my father would take joy in being part of something I built. Not just tolerating it, but contributing. One afternoon, as I was finishing up a pitch deck in the conference room, Rachel popped her head in. "You got a minute?" "Sure." She stepped in, holding a soft blue envelope. "This was left on your desk. I think you should read it alone." She gave me a quick hug and left. Curious, I opened it. It was a letter. Handwritten. "Emily, I never learned how to say, 'I'm proud of you,' without it sounding like a trap. That's on me. But I'm learning. Watching you lead with integrity, with fire and grace, it's opened something in me I thought was too old to change. I see now that my fear of you succeeding wasn't about you. It was about me. About the man I didn't become.
But you?
You became the woman your mother always saw in you. Thank you for not becoming cruel to prove your strength. Thank you for being better than I ever was."
Dad.
I read the letter 3 times. The ink blurred near the signature. He'd cried while writing it. For the first time in my life, I felt something I never expected to feel for Richard Carter. Compassion. Not pity, not confusion, just understanding. He was broken, too. But healing didn't have to start perfect. It just had to start. The next day, our company hosted its first mentorship brunch, a new initiative I'd started to give young women in logistics a path to leadership. I stood at the front, introducing the speakers, then handed the mic to our newest manager, Rachel. She looked at me, eyes gleaming with excitement. "When I started here," she said, "I didn't know what it meant to work for someone who led with purpose. Emily Carter changed that." There was applause. Not polite. Genuine. Later, as I mingled near the refreshment table, a young intern, Allie, approached me. "Ms. Carter?" "Just Emily," I smiled. "I hope it's okay to say this, but you're kind of why I applied here. I read about your company in a business magazine. The article said you built everything from the ground up." I nodded slowly. "That's true. Even after people doubted you?" I looked across the room and saw Richard, standing by the coffee stand, talking to one of the delivery drivers, laughing like he belonged. "Especially after they doubted me."
She grinned.
"That's so cool." And just like that, I saw the full circle moment. I wasn't just the girl whose father said she'd never make it. I was the woman others now looked up to. The leader who built something powerful and shared it. Who held the door open instead of slamming it behind her. On the walk home that evening, I passed the neighborhood bookstore and noticed something in the window, a journal titled, "Light the World on Fire." I laughed out loud. It was the phrase Mom had once written on a napkin, the phrase that got me through countless dark nights. I walked in and bought it. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote my first entry. My father works for me, not out of revenge, not out of desperation, but because I created something that even he could respect. And maybe that's what winning really is. Not watching people crawl back, but rising so high that even the ones who never believed can't help but admire the view. The next morning, I opened my office windows wide. The city was bathed in gold. Birds fluttered past. Coffee steamed on my desk. And behind me, the sound of keyboards tapping, printers humming, and people laughing felt like music. A new beginning. A healed legacy. And I, Emily Carter, daughter of doubt, survivor of smallness, was exactly where I was meant to be.